The only thing worse than being blind is having sight but no vision. I'm inspired to close out Women's History Month with these impactful words by Helen Keller and introduce you to a visionary female founder who has a big vision of a global village of kindness. Stay tuned.
It's time to be kind with Marley Q.
Because the time to be kind to ourselves, each other, and the world is now. Welcome and thank you for making time to be kind with Marley Q. Help me to welcome our special guest and Parker today, Dr. Egleevelyn Nunez-Sancristobal, a super special Parker in my world. Welcome. Thanks for making time to be kind.
Yes, of course. Thank you for inviting me. Thank you.
Yes. So before we dive in case you're new to my world and you're listening for the first time, Eglee, please tell folks, what's a Parker?
It is a person that performs acts of random kindness.
That's right. A Parker is you, me, and we, everyone that we are uniting through this effort, through this podcast, everyone that makes time to be kind on a weekly basis. Once you are a Parker, you're a person that performs acts of random kindness. And together, I believe that we have the power to really shift our culture and shift our world to one that is more kind and of service to each other. And I'm so excited to spend this time with you, Eglee, here today and share you with our Parkers listening, because you are a visionary female founder who has been working towards this greater vision of creating a kinder world for well over a decade that I've known you, right? And before we jump into hearing about your story and your vision, I want to tell those listening that Eglee is the founder and the principal of STARS Global Preparatory School in Miami, Florida. She has a bachelor's in special needs from Nova Southeastern University. She has a master's in autism from my alma mater, FIU, Florida International University. And recently, even like during pandemic times, this woman went out and got a PhD in educational leadership, right? On top of having a toddler, running a school, just a few things. This is a superhero, and her together with her team at STARS Global Prep are creating kinder humans each and every day. Eglee, can you share with us your vision for STARS Global Prep and really what I see as your vision for creating like this global community, this global village of kindness?
Thank you, Marley. That was a beautiful intro. Thank you so much. STARS Global Preparatory really started at my heart and really tugging at the need of a global awareness of kindness, of unity, of love. And I think we've all felt that way in the last couple of years. And the vision of the global village, which is an actual area in our school, also took months of planning and looking for details that will really, really send the message, not only to the students, but as I like to call it, a double message to the parents. So when the parents and the students come to the global village, yes, the global village is an area where we have literally duplicated in smaller size areas like an animal shelter, a recycling center, the laboratory. We have a planting station. So these are all areas that the students get to go in and experiment with all these areas. But for the parents looking at it, they totally see the double meaning, which means that, yes, our children need to know about recycling. Yes, our students need to know that shelters exist, not just for animals, but in other ways. So it became almost a breath of fresh air when parents would come and tour and the students go in there, because it reminds us instantly that it's not about me. It's about globally, these are issues that are going on in the world, and how can we make them better? And how can I teach my child what an animal shelter is and why are these animals there? And it just created so much more than just an area for them to play in and imagine. And it really becomes something. It's really become interesting. And even for us as the adults, we do our parent meetings in there. We do our staff meetings there. Everybody wants to hang out in there because it really reminds you of what it is to be a kid. And it reminds you to have fun. And we go down we have a slide that goes into a big ball pit. And that's like the big ending of a service learning lesson. And it's just a really, really cool space to be in.
I've been there, right? I've been there personally. My two kids, I think, were one of the first kids.
They were the first.
The first. Oh, wow. I love being the spark. I love being the first, right? So I had my 2-year-old and my 4-year-old go down that slide in the ball pit. I had them play, right? So I love what you said, that much more than just a play area. It's really an opportunity to connect and engage with like the whole of humanity, of what actually makes us mankind, right? Which is being connected to our sense of kindness and responsibility to be of service to one another. So I want you to talk to us about your service learning component at STARS Global Prep, because I really think this is what makes this school so unique, so different. And honestly, one of the main reasons why I, for the past 2 years or so, have served as a chairwoman of the board for STARS, right? And why I'm involved in growing this school and in this awareness is really because of the intentional design of this extended day, right, that you have. So can you share with us what that's all about?
So service learning has been something that I've always felt is so important, but it wasn't until high school that I really understood it. And then thinking back on all these community volunteers that always want to volunteer at our school, I said, our kids are really not going into the community and also saying, thank you for volunteering at my school, but I want to go help and pass it forward. And you mentioned the word responsibility. And that is truly the message, is to teach the students that they have a responsibility. We all have a responsibility. It's as simple as that. It's about teaching them what it is that they do daily to contribute to the responsibility of better generations to come and what the earth that we live on. So the service learning is something that we infused into their school day. So they're here between the hour of 2:05 to 2:45, almost dismissal, which is 3. They go into the global village, and there's big rims of paper and this big, cart with all this paper on it that they get to roll out, put on the floor, and begin the process of IPART. So IPART is something that we teach the kids, which is to investigate, to prepare, to act on, to reflect, and then we get to celebrate and demonstrate.
Hang on a second. Did you just drop an acronym right now? Is this an acronym?
I did it, Marley.
We need to pause a moment to let our listeners know this is a non-Marley Q acronym that I want you to learn.
So this is how we were able to explain it, because I said, how do I explain everything that service learning is to a child or to a parent? So what we do is that the service learning, the students pick at the beginning of the school year, it's a whole year transition. They get to brainstorm as a group, and they get to jot down what they feel are things they want to fix, is the key word that we use at the beginning of the school year. As we evolve, we all get to write down everything we want to fix, and they have to, as a group, agree by about month 2, because it takes us that long to really go in and say, what are the things you want to fix? So we start categorizing it. And then let's say they find that recycling is the one that they all agree can be something that they could really impact their community. So then that takes us to the investigating part. Let's investigate, how do people recycle? How do the offices recycle? And then they start to all these questions. It's teacher-led, but more student-based. The teacher kind of plants the seed and lets the students evolve. And then once they investigate and they get all this information, then they start to prepare and come up with a plan. How are we going to have all these offices around us have a recycling bin and have the how are we going to do that? And then after that, once they actually implement the project, they have to reflect. What worked? What didn't work? What can we do more? Or what can we do next year or next semester, because we want to pick up this project again? So it's not just I'm going to go today, pick up some garbage at a park, and what are we doing tomorrow? No, it's a whole process. And doing that, what we're trying to establish is in that person, in that student, that facility, that tool, that ability, that skill set to be able to identify these issues in our community in a kind way, in a graceful way, in a loving way, and working with the resources around them to say, how can we fix this? What can I do? And I think everybody can agree as adults that our students and our children and the generations coming and growing that we see are having a lot of difficulty problem solving. They're having a lot of difficulty communicating for a lot of reasons, right? That we're not going to get into. But this activity that's done daily has brought out, and this is why it takes us this long, so many skills that we inadvertently are teaching them when my friend doesn't like my idea, but I really think it should be. Well, let's talk about it. How would you talk to someone that you don't agree with? And it's just brought on so much more than just a project. And that's why it's called service learning, because there's a learning component to it. It's not just a service component.
Right.
So we're super excited about it.
And that's why it, quote, takes so long. It's not that it takes so long, is that it is a daily practice.
Exactly.
What you're teaching and what you're planting the seeds are, is that this isn't just like this one-time project that we're going to work on and we're in and out of this problem. This is a way of being a socially conscious, a global citizen, someone that thinks about what are the problems that exist in my community, right? And empower children, elementary school kids, right? Little kids, empower them with a sense of responsibility.
Absolutely.
And the way that I break down the word responsibility to me doesn't mean that I carry the weight of the burden on the world, right? The burden of the world on my shoulders. And it is up to me to save the world and solve all the many, many, many problems that I'm passionate about, right? Because if we live in that space, then we are overwhelming our children, right? How can we possibly give, and ourselves as adults, how can we possibly take on all the huge burden of all our societal problems? We simply cannot. But what we can do is tap into our ability to respond to the problems that we identify as important to solve. And that's what I see you're teaching these kids, and you're giving them the process and the structure to inquire, right? To think about what questions do we need to ask, because what's a problem? A problem is just an unanswered question, right? So what questions do we need to ask? You're teaching them this skill. It is a skill. And I love that this is an intentional part of your school design, of not just your curriculum, but of the culture of the school. And it transfers not just for the students, like you said, but let's talk about like the student, parent, and teacher relationship, right? And how does kindness in education play a role or trickle out, right? In order to engage the parents in this process as well. And not just the parents, the greater community, right?
And that's the biggest goal. The service learning component has taught us that the parents are very enthusiastic about their children participating in this type of activity. They want their children to have this ability to do that, to do this. The moment we then now say, okay, parents, we need you to support us. And that's where we're at. You know, also showing the parents and showing the collaboration that it's not just your student that's responsible for this, and being able to see the issues that maybe surround your family that are important to your family. So that's the next phase. And we have a big vision for this. We really do. And I know that it has so many different legs and so many different directions that we can continue to expand on. But for us at the moment, the students don't even see it, which I think it just organically happened. Don't see it as, oh my gosh, I have to pick, I have to do all these things. They really are excited about, I can actually help. And I speak in these terms because they're young, they're elementary students. So these are the terms that they rebuttal to us. I can actually help. I can actually do this. Because as little kids, as you guys know, you sometimes feel that you don't have a say. You sometimes feel that you're not heard. You sometimes feel that what's important to you is not important because you're not a grown-up. So this activity, this program, this time, whatever you want to call it, has given the students a voice, self-esteem, confidence. We have students that are deficient in certain subject areas and need more help, that are not A students. But yet when they get into the service learning projects, they're the best artists. That the kids are like, whoa, we didn't know you can draw like that, because we're making the flyers for the bake sale, let's say. Or wow, I didn't know that you can do that. So it has, and that wasn't planned. That just happened that way. And it has really shown the adults, and that's the goal, witnessing this, because it's happened to me, it's happened to the teachers. We're there hearing and watching. There's hope. You feel such a sense of, okay, you feel rejuvenated, you feel driven, like, okay, so it's not going to always be perfect, because education is not perfect, as we all know, right? The education field, but there's hope. Like there's still hope in these kids. We still have the ability to take it back old school and have these students have a teacher-student relationship that matters, that you can remember for a lifetime. I mean, these are things that I'm hopeful for. And I hope that in the interim, I can kind of sprinkle that, be the spark, like Marley says, for others that maybe don't feel it yet or have never experienced it. that can now say, wow, that was pretty cool,
You're touching on something so special to me. And again, why I'm involved and why I try to volunteer and spread the word about the great work that's happening over at STARS Global is because I was that elementary school kid. Like I was that, 9 or 10-year-old that felt really, really worried and burdened by the problems that I saw in my own home, in my community, like on TV, in the news, right? When my parents would put this on, rule number 1, don't have your kids watch the news. Like, please don't do that, right? Like, I really felt that as a young girl, like, I want to do something to fix and to help, right? And I felt super helpless. I felt insignificant. I felt unheard. I felt like I needed to grow up. I needed to have money. I needed to, and what can I do? And I had a teacher, my 4th grade teacher, which I share this in my TEDx talk. I'll link it in the show notes to this episode. If you haven't watched it yet, please do. Because organically, we've been sharing this message of kindness for well over a decade. Eglee and I know each other for well over a decade, and we've been building and planting these seeds one by one child by one. And you're doing the work of creating this global village of kindness, of creating this world where people are kind and of service to each other. This is how you do it, by empowering kids, educating them that you have the responsibility, you have the ability to respond in small ways that make a really big impact. And the more that we teach that, not just to our kids, but involve our parents in this process and involve the greater community in like, hey, this is the most important work that we can be doing.
Exactly. Marley, that's exactly how I feel. And I'm saying it like that because this is the most important work. As adults, I feel it's our responsibility to really give back to our kids. We can sit here and talk about, laws and statutes and, all these rules that come up in education. But at the end, the kids still come to school every day. Students still show up. And it's the ones that need it the most that never, ever miss school. Those are the ones that always show up because they need
100% attendance, 100% attendance right here. I needed it the most. And that student-teacher relationship that you just emphasized, that
connection.
That is what I want to emphasize, that I feel, along with your student with the service learning model, along with your super high quality, up-to-date curriculum, along with your student support services, right? That STARS Global Prep is an all-inclusive campus, right? With children that are, cognitively atypical or on the autism spectrum or have other kind of, learning delays, right? STARS Global Prep is this all-inclusive campus that can provide and can meet students at the level that they're at with a foundation of kindness, because that engagement, that connection with your teacher every day that sees you, that hears you, that is empowering you, that says, hey, you can make a difference, right? Every day, because this is a service learning class every single day that we have this conversation. You give me hope. You give, hopefully our Parkers listening, some inspiration and some hope that there are future kind-minded service leaders being educated here. And I just love that. I want to be able to wrap up our conversation today with this quote that I know is important to you by Helen Keller. The only thing worse than being blind is having sight, but no vision, right? Like, we must be able to first envision the world that we wish to create. Absolutely. We must first be able to have a vision of a world where all humankind is holding that standard of kindness towards ourselves, kindness toward each other, kindness towards this world that we share. And in moments where we fall and we fail because we do, and we're unkind to ourselves and to each other, like kids are, right? Are we teaching our kids and teaching ourselves with kindness and course correcting with like, no, this is the standard, right? This is how we behave as human beings and as leaders, and not just how we learn and how we play, but this is how we give back and are involved as active citizens and global citizens in our community.
And that's why our school campuses, we have two, are inclusive. And we do have students that are not maybe cognitively at grade level, because how can we teach kindness and how can we be kind and not include all students? So, it's part of our mission. It's a big vision, but I always, and thanks to you, Marley, always take a deep breath and remind myself it's one day at a time, one student at a time, and really trying to have that human connection and leave that mark and hopefully have that student just remember that like you do with your teacher and a teacher that I remember, and look back and say, wow, I want to be like that, or I remember that. That's the vision. That's the hope.
And you're doing it each and every single day. Eglee, thank you. I know how busy you are. Thank you for making this time to be kind with me and our Parkers listening today.
Thank you. Thank you, Marley. I appreciate you. Thank you for what you do. Thank you.
I hope you enjoyed this short episode and are inspired to elevate your own vision for the kind of world that we can create together. Achieving our world where everyone is kind and of service to one another takes all of us. So I hope that you were inspired by the fact that educating our youth to be kind to themselves and the world is one step in the right direction. To connect with STARS Global Prep and access this episode's show notes and transcriptions, we've made it super easy for you. Just visit us at marleyq.com/this episode number. So whatever episode number this episode is, marleyq.com/that episode number. Thank you so much for making time to be kind with Marley Q. See you next time.